Guys, welcome. We have Paul Stennett. Is that correct? Did I pronounce your name correctly? Paul
Yes, that's
Stennett?
right. Paul Stennett.
Perfect. Always gets me in the beginning is I want to make sure I pronounce people's names correctly. I don't want to butcher them because I know people's names are personal and you don't want to offend the wrong person.
Yeah,
Uh,
I get it.
but I found Paul because I was scrolling Dan Henry's his roast. You were on Dan Henry's roast,
Yeah, I
and
was.
what was that like? And like, what was the reason why you wanted to do that in the first place? Because you're really putting yourself out there, and you're really being vulnerable. And some people might see that as the way as something that might tarnish their brand than help it. So like, what was the reason why you jumped on the Dan Henry show?
Yeah, I'm down for doing anything that helps me to grow. I
Okay.
seek out accelerators or incubators or programs and courses, and of course things that roast because I'm more concerned about what I can learn, and what I can do for my business versus like any how I may come off or coming looking bad or whatever. And these things are when you peel back the essence of it. For example, the roast. Yes, it might look like you're getting hammered, and you definitely are getting hammered. But when you look at it in the real terms, you're getting actual solid business advice from someone who's been doing it for a number of years, who you're getting a free chance to sit with them and have them tear down your business. Otherwise, you're paying thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of $1,000s for that same time. So it was a total no brainer to sign up and get roasted for me. And that's how I
And
approach most things.
and this stuff wasn't available, like you said. You're getting very valuable advice for free. To be able to talk to Dan Henry 5-6 years ago, you would have to pay 20, 30K or maybe even 100K just to even get an hour with them.
Yeah, and not only did I get an hour with him and change. We spoke before he hit record. He spoke after he hit record. We also did a follow up conversation like a week and a half after that, which is huge. Um, he was able to give me something really valuable, which is like he's able to give me confidence. He's able to give
Mm,
me a script that I can use for
mm.
VSL, which I use for VSL to this day. Um, yeah, it gave me validation that like the path that I'm going down on is actually going to lead me to the outcome I'm looking for. Just a few tweaks.
Would you say that? Would you say that? So you're big into personal development. I love that because I'm also big into personal development, and we'll do anything that I can do to grow. But is there a point where someone is? I'm asking this for myself. Is there a point where someone is too into personal development where they don't grow?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've been in situations myself where um and it's something that I think was perpetuated by just being in the online space for a number of years. And you're around certain coaches, your own coaches, and the coaches have this coaching language. How you do anything is how you do everything, and all these types of sayings where on the surface it's great, but if you stick around it and you build your life around it, it can kind of be limiting, right? It
Hmm.
can kind of be a stick which you can use to assault yourself or harm yourself, when you're not necessarily in alignment with those things. Let's say I'm a father of a 4-year old, so my life is up and down. Like one day could be very business oriented, we're hitting all the targets. Another day could be blown off entirely because something's come up for the child, and we just have to take care of that. Family needs, like things happen. Life is life, right? So there are to say the people who get up at 5 a.m. You crush your goals, you do all the work that someone who can wake up at 9 o'clock, you'll get a day ahead of them if you wake up at 5. All of this stuff is great on the surface, but you really have to tailor it to your specific circumstance and not get down on yourself when if and when you do fall sort of certain things. So like at the core of everything, you need to have grace for yourself, understand your circumstances, and don't be rigid in all these sayings and teachings from all these gurus and which mean well, but if you're too rigid, it's gonna break you down.
Yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of teachings out there. How do you filter from who to learn from now and who not to learn from? You know what I mean? Because there's people that might look good on the surface, but they're just saying stuff, you know what I mean? And they're saying stuff to
Yeah.
maybe motivate you, but that could be just like surface level stuff. How do you now, from starting in like the very beginning when you probably just listened to everyone and took advice from everyone, how are you now deciding who you're learning from? Like what I would say, what are three key things you're looking at and you're like, I'm learning from this guy?
Yeah. For me, when I just started out, you're right. I was listening to everything and everybody and taking every piece of advice because you just don't know what you don't know, and so you just trying to like consume as much as you can to like enrich your brain because you don't. I didn't grow up in those circumstances where I was given great lessons and great teachings and great advice. So I really had to absorb everything. But now, at the stage I'm in life, stage I'm in business, I'm looking more at what's the one thing that I can learn, what's this very specific thing. So instead of saying I'm just going to call a name here. I'm going to go for like a Lewis House, where back in the day, like he was a huge inspiration for me. His podcast was a very good thing for me. It was more on the general well-being, right? Where now I'm looking for more specific stuff. Okay, how do I optimize Facebook ads, or how do I
Mm,
optimize this specific thing? How do I optimize my diet, get more protein? Me focusing on this specific thing. How do I optimize my sleep? So I'm not going for more general stuff anymore. Not just grabbing any general advice. I'm looking for that really deep, really detailed, really long tail, like detailed explanation and advice from a deep expert in a topic.
okay, that makes sense. You mentioned growing up, like so you mentioned you didn't have any of this stuff growing up. What was I would say what was it like for you growing up? Like can you give us like a overall like because I'm the same way. I didn't grow up with any mentors, and I
Yeah,
think the first thing I ever saw online was Ty Lopez and his 67 steps. That was the first thing, and it's like, okay, here in my garage, lock in, boom, boom, boom. I was like, man, I want to be like the successful guy with a Ferrari, boom, boom, boom. So I listened to him, and I think that was the very first time that I actually thought of entrepreneurship or thought of wanting to escape my city, which was only 1,000 people in my city.
yeah.
So what was what was life like growing up for you, and what was like the changing point to where you're like now starting to get into this entrepreneur mindset?
Yeah, I mean, my transformation into entrepreneur mindset and all, and that entire realm of internet marketing on a whole didn't really start for me until I was 24.
Okay.
So before that, I was very much into um, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get good grades, get a good degree, get a good job, work that job until you climb up the ladder, eventually retire and live your life and die, right? How I grew up middle class, so I was fortunate enough to grow up with both my parents that were still married today. I have an older brother who kind of was 2 years ahead of me, so we're still very much relatable and was able to like impart a lot of knowledge as he was growing up. But growing up, I wasn't really surrounded by abundance. I wasn't really surrounded by good mental or wealth lessons. Um, so a lot of my family was either in debt or dealing with debt or just dealing with a financial not an abundant financial situation, right?
Yep.
And there are some points in which we go up but come right back down, right? So I didn't really learn about money, didn't really learn about managing money, anything about making money, anything outside of having a job. So it wasn't until I came across my wife introduced me to Tim Ferriss. So we were married.
Mm,
Um, we were a few weeks into our marriage, living together, and then she introduced me to Tim Ferriss, and I read all his books. I read the 4 Hour Chef, 4 Hour Work Week, 4 Hour Body, and the 4 Hour Work Week really inspired me because it really shaped generating revenue in an ethical way, where it's just like it's something that you're inspired to do something. You go out there, you create it with your hands, and you go out there and you find customers and you sell it online and in a very ethical way. You tell people this is the benefit, this is what it will do for you. You actually make sure it delivers on that promise, and then you sell it en masse, and then you make a lot of money that way. And it introduced the concept of the new rich, the new rich to me. That was like you don't have to be in your 50s or in your 60s, retired, to then be rich. You can be rich now in your 20s or 30s. And that really inspired me to go forward and like consume as much as I can. The Ty Lopez's, the Peter, I don't know if you know about Peter J. Voogd at the time. People like that who were John Lee Dumas and from Tim Ferriss to Kevin Rose, all of these people who were on the tech space, but also in the digital marketing space as well.
Yeah.
Then I found my way to Russell Brunson, read his books, which were really awesome, and just getting saturated into that space. Dan Kennedy, getting a ton of books, and just reading constantly about different things in sales, negotiation, digital marketing, coaching as well. I definitely learned a lot about coaching from like Tony Robbins and buying his programs as well. So yeah, just between 24 and like in my 20s was a lot of like self-development and growth in that space, for sure.
Was there ever a point you felt like, man, I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm not seeing any progress?
Yeah. One thing that I think really what made the difference for me, and that I see from several other people in the space, is that a lot of people are comfortable with just learning all the information, and I mean, not very comfortable going out and actually doing something, and because they're going to face rejection. But
Yep.
I really just wanted to get out there into the market as quickly as possible and put something out there and see how the market reacts to it. And so I was working at a software firm, and I started sharing information with my coworkers, just like talking to them about what I'm learning about procrastination and what I'm learning about, how to be more productive to get things accomplished. And I put out an ebook about it, all that stuff, and I started to build like a course around it and stuff. And people in my office started to buy it, and it really was the thing that gave me a glimpse into what could happen. I later refunded everybody because I wasn't going to make the product or anything, but it was that spark that I needed to know that, okay, it's possible to build something entirely digital. You can just create from your mind, put it out there, and then someone can find value in it enough to give you money for it, like real
Yep.
US dollars money to acquire it. So that really started me off, and then from there, I just did different things. And I dived into online training, personal training, teaching people about fitness and nutrition as well. And I created this thing called Founders Kitchen, where I teach busy entrepreneurs how to eat healthy when they're busy trying to manage their lives. And some people bought that as well. And then I took all of that lesson into podcasting, and podcasting is where I saw the most of my success in digital field, and that's what eventually led me to be able to live to sustain myself after I left my job.
Wow, no, that's impressive. I do got a question on the podcasting, but I want to go back just a little bit because I'm interested in the 4-hour work week,
man.
because I actually just recently bought the book. So, is it true? Can you really have a 4-hour work week? Like, is that possible? Because I know it's about automations and systems. Because as I'm reading the book, then I see another post by another mentor is like, you don't want a 4-hour work week. Like, you want to work 10 hours a day. You don't want to be bored for the rest of the day or whatever.
Yeah.
Idle time is so. Like, my question is what did you learn from the 4-hour work week that you use today that kind of shapes how you operate today?
Yeah. So the 4-hour work week was a basis in which I built everything that I'm doing right now. One sec. Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah. So, like, delegating, outsourcing overseas, that's a concept that came from the 4-hour work week. So that's what we do right now. We live in Jamaica. Me and my wife, we run the business together, but we have a team that's distributed all across the world. And the real benefit of the 4-hour work was about time freedom. It's about, you don't necessarily want to have a 4-hour work week but you can, right? Think about it this way: like, you go to 9 to 5, a 9 to 5 job, you're spending 9 to 5 working, and you need to
Correct.
be able to do that to earn the wage, earn your living, right? After
Correct.
working 9 to 5 for 4 weeks, you get a salary. So he's flipping it on its head. He's saying, well, you personally don't have to work 9 to 5 to make money. You can make money that's not bound to your time by using tools like delegation, by using tools like digital marketing or tools like, because he's talking about creating products and selling them, or creating courses or digital products and selling them on like Gumroad or eBay or Etsy or whatever. So, in that way, you're making the thing one time, or you're making one whole batch of things and you're selling it. That's not bound to your time. Same way we're creating a digital product. You're making a digital product once and you're selling it in an infinite number of times. So that's the concept. And as the first concept that you experience in your life, as somebody who didn't come from that background, wasn't aware of that, like your mind is just blown completely about what is actually possible. And then you start to mess around with yourself by yourself.
This reminds me. Have you read the book E-Myth?
I have, yeah, definitely.
And so I started a marketing agency back in 2017, and then I created me a job, just like the E-Myth talks about. So this basically teaches you how to not create yourself a job, but create yourself something that's going to create freedom. Is
Yeah,
what you're talking.
yeah. So he starts the book talking about how he was in that situation where he created himself a job. He was running a supplements company and he created himself a job. Like, he was doing everything. He was doing all the sourcing and all the distribution, everything, selling it, everything. But he just took different pieces that he didn't want to do. He outsourced different pieces, and to the point where he was just like saying to his entire team, "Don't call me unless the value of what you're calling me for is over a certain financial amount. Like, don't call me unless the decision you need to make is over $500. Otherwise, he's going off to Argentina. He's going off to Japan.
Damn.
All these things, right? Exactly. So that's the kind of idea he was painting, and that was it's really good. It's really good to experience that through that.
I got a question. Even after reading the book and even after knowing all that stuff, did you still get sucked into the wormhole of creating yourself a job at one point?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the reality is that there's no avoiding it to a certain point, right? So,
Okay.
you want to. Well, this is my philosophy. There are people who have a different philosophy from me. This is my philosophy: is you want to sell a good product,
Okay.
right? There are some people who believe that selling is the most important thing, and if you can sell enough things, then the delivery will take care of itself. But if you sell people a dream about something, about a solution to their problems, and your product sucks, you haven't actually delivered anything. You're selling people snake oil because you can't actually deliver. So, in that time in which you're spending to build a good product before you can actually go into the market and start selling it en masse, you're just spending a lot of time doing as much as you can in the process to get a good product. And that part, I think, is essential. It's essential to do that before you can then say, okay, now I have a good product. It's time to now take it to the market and then scale it. So it's a hand-in-hand process, though, because you don't want to build something that nobody wants. So you want to build something with people who are paying you. So it's valuable.
You're building as you go. So you're not building it because I'm under the conception that you got to have the right offer product first, and then get the customers second.
Yeah. You have to have you have to have a good offer that people will pay for. But you don't want to just say, you don't want to build it first, because then you might go into the market and realize that nobody actually wants it. So you want to build it to a point where you feel comfortable with actually selling to somebody, or you feel comfortable enough to be able to deliver on that thing, and then you go into the market and then you sell it. So, with an agency business like what I have, is the easiest thing to get started on, because there's no upfront costs. The delivery is entirely in your ability, your expertise to deliver on something. So if you have the experience or believe you can access the experience, the expertise to get it done, go ahead and start, sell to your first 5 clients or so, and then begin to work on that process to make a very good product. And then don't give up with that client until they've gotten the outcome which you promised them.
Dang. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, dang, that's a lot. Appreciate you for diving in on that.
Yeah, man.
You did say sell, and I saw one of your posts that says you learned from someone doing over 100K a month. I'm not sure how exactly the exact price they were doing, but they said in the beginning you should be doing nothing but sales.
Yeah.
Can you give us an overview of what you mean by that? So like,
Yeah.
say
That's some advice that I
just
received. Mhm.
oh, go ahead. Oh, say someone's just starting a business, right? And they're like, okay, I need to map out this whole business. I got to do the fulfillment. It's a lot. You know, you obviously know what it takes to run a business because I mean, you're running one right now.
Yeah.
How does someone focus just on sales whenever their mind's like, okay, well, I need to fix the product. I need to build the product. I need to do the delivery. I got to figure out how to offer the services and fulfill and just so many tasks at hand.
Yeah.
And then you're telling someone saying just focus on sales, because I've had someone tell me that like, just focus on sales. All you need to be focusing on in the beginning is sales. So what did he say? I'm curious.
Yeah, so it was a long conversation. We spoke about all the things, and I'll walk you through all of those things. But basically, so how I approach it is just like with Danny Henry getting the rose. It was I had an opportunity to talk to somebody who was further ahead than I am. So he's doing $120,000 a month in revenue in his business. He's selling agent services like I am, and for whether I agree or disagree with whatever he's saying, I'm going to take his advice. I'm going to listen to his advice and like apply, share it, whatever. Take pieces of it that I resonate with. And one thing that he said was about sales, which is like he realized that he didn't have a good product because he had high churn, but he couldn't solve the product and keep his business running. So in terms of he couldn't solve the product without getting revenue in because he has to pay staff, he has to pay for all the different things to deliver on the service. So his frame of mind was he's going to push to sell as much as he could up to a certain point. So he sold as much as he could up to $30,000 a month. And then that was a point. And he said that he believes he's more comfortable to now change the focus of the business. So now, you don't have to worry about payroll. You have enough money to make investments in different things that you need to improve the product. At that point now, you can slow down on the sales and invest in making a good product. And that pause that he took and improving the product was then allowed him to then take the next push in sales with a better product and push all the way to 120K per month. So that's what he believes is a formula for it. So, when you're just starting out, get to 30K and then fix your product and then go beyond that. And then go run your ads, do your outreach, do hire your salespeople, all that stuff. But when you're just getting started, you go out there and you sell as much as you can up to 30K. That was his advice. And as I said, I don't fully agree with all of it, but I took all of it and I shared that with everybody.
Yeah, I was curious because that's kind of where I am. So I was like, that kind of got my attention. I was like, okay, they're just focused on sales. But back to the podcast. That is what you currently do right now. Can you give us an overview of like what you do and who you help?
Yeah, so clients who are in the health and wellness, integrative health space. So these are coaches, these are practitioners, these are doctors in the health and wellness space. I help them to build and grow and monetize their podcast by selling their own products and services through their podcast.
And you said you got started into this. It wasn't the first business you started, but as you failed a few businesses, I'm not even saying fail because I consider everything a learning lesson now. Honestly, every business I had, I looked at it as a failure, but I learned from each business. At what point did you start to finally see success with your podcast? Because I watched a YouTube video, guys, I can't remember the guy's name, but he basically says like, say this is your starting point, right? and you started your first business, and you're going across, you're moving forward month by month by month, and then you're like, this ain't working. I need to start a new business, which is what we call shiny object syndrome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I suffer from shiny object syndrome. That is my weakness as a superhero. Shiny object syndrome is I have to really like get a grip on it.
Yeah.
So he said every time you start that new business, you're not starting from where you stopped. You have to go. You're going all the way back to the beginning. Did you see that when you started your podcast?
Yeah. So when I started my podcast, I made a few different pivots until I found the format that worked the best for me. Um, yeah. So I started the podcast talking about productivity, but it just never sat well with me. It just never flowed, and so none of those episodes exist, and I didn't publish a single episode. But then I started to interview entrepreneurs in Jamaica, successful entrepreneurs, emerging entrepreneurs, and talking about their stories, and that just felt more in line with me, felt more in flow with me, and I was able to not only build an audience of people who wanted to hear that podcast, I was able to build my network as well. So people, all those entrepreneurs who I interviewed became part of my network, people I could call on, talk to, get advice from, share things with. And so that's how that grew. And it gained a lot of recognition locally. And fortunately, I was able to build up that skill of just editing the shows, putting them out, promoting them, getting them views, tweaking things along the way. That when I left my job, and that's a whole thing. I had a skill.
I'm still at my job, and I'm like at the point to where I'm ready to leave. So I'm curious. I want to go back here in a minute to that.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, I had a skill set, and that skill set allowed me to say, now that I don't have income coming in and I don't have any prospects that I'm actively looking at, what can I do to make some money, because I really need to make some money. And I had a skill set, so I was able to go into the market and say, well, would you want this? And some people would be like, no, and some people would be like, let's try you out. And that's how I was able to get that going. And I've maintained that sole focus on podcasting. It has grown and evolved, but that main focus about helping people get clients on their podcast has been my main focus for the past 6 years.
At any point, did you feel like giving up?
All the time. All the time.
And just say, screw this. This is a lot of work. Yeah. Okay.
All the time. Like running a business is hard, man. Running a business is like it's like an addiction. It's like you're chasing the high every day. And sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't get it, but you're always chasing it. And when you get it, you're willing to go through all the struggles just to get to it, again. And when you do get it, it's actually really worth it, and it's a really great feeling when you hit a new milestone, or you sign a good client, or like these things. It's very rewarding, but it's a roller coaster. It's a struggle. It's hard. Like people who are entrepreneurs, I tip my hat to them, man, because it's a lot that goes into it.
So I'm at the point right now where I'm at the phase where like I'm still working a job, but I'm also trying to build something. And you sound like you were at that phase before. What was that key turning point, or what was that like moment where you're like, it's time to quit? You know what I mean? It goes through every entrepreneur's head. Like, it's time to quit. Like, it's time to quit. And then eventually you quit and you actually try to pursue this. Like, I'm interested in like maybe how much money you had saved up, how much maybe clients you had. Like, what was like that like for you quitting? Because entrepreneurs out there right now, they might be in the same boat as you were back then, where you're ready to quit and you're ready to push forward, but they're like, the timing's not right. Maybe I don't have enough money in the bank. Maybe I don't have enough clients yet. Is this going to work? Like there's so many fears, but if you don't take the risk, you're not going to get the reward.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious what that was like for you.
Yeah, man. So it was very not typical. Like, I could tell you, quitting was the furthest thing from my mind. Like, I was getting promotions left, right, and center. I'd recently gotten a promotion where I was now running the sales and marketing for my entire division. So for the Jamaican Caribbean region, I was running the sales and marketing for the entire outfit of the company, right? So that was a huge deal. and I was able to hire my own team and set my own hours and do whatever. I could take clients to lunches and all of these things. It was very different for me because before I was doing software development and consulting, where it's like you're behind a screen. There's
Yep.
very minimal interaction with clients. It's just about business. It's about giving them what they ask for. Whereas now I can convince a client to give us $100,000 contract to help them with something. That there's negotiation involved. Like I was really stepping up in what I thought was stepping up.
And that was the
And
company you're working for, correct?
that was a company I was working for, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And not only that, but they were allowing me to do my podcast. So they'd give me the keys. I'd open the office up on Saturdays and Sundays, and that's where I would interview my guests in the conference rooms, and I'd edit the shows on Sunday night before it goes out on Monday. Like, they really gave me a lot of privileges, and I was really grateful for that. And that was like, I did that from June of 2017 to about November. And in November, we're planning like what we're gonna do for 2018, right? What were the plans? So like I did a whole thing about all the plans, and this is what we're gonna do. And I went to present it to the CEO, and the CEO laid me off, just like completely blindsided me. He's just like, well, we're not opening your position up again. We're just gonna close it down and try something else. And you have an option. You could go home and wait for us to call you for another position. Maybe it can be a tech lead, or you could just be laid off and take 2 months pay. And I was like, okay, well, let me think about it. And I went home and called my wife, and she picked me up from work. And it was just a very surreal moment. Like I cannot explain the shock and terror and disappointment where you're believing that everything is going well for you. You've built up an association in your space with other entrepreneurs that like you're doing this thing, and all of a sudden your identity is now lost. You're not identified as this big shot anymore. You're not doing big things anymore. You've actually been laid off completely. You're actually like has been stripped from your entire identity. And it was very hard for both me and my wife at the time. I was thinking like that. And then we were sitting down there for a while at home trying to figure out what to do. And so I said, we had no savings, right? We had no savings.
Damn.
And so the only choice was,
it just got real then. Yeah. So it was real.
The only choice was to just take the layoff, take the 2 months, and try to find something. And that's what we did. I called all my entrepreneur people that in my network, and it's like, can we do something? Like, do you have a position I could do? But nothing that they offered me, and I'm very grateful that they did have, say, come, you can work here, you can do this, you can choose this. Nothing really felt like it was a fit for me. And like I said, I had a skill. So I said, let me try to survive for a few months on this little money that they gave me and try to make something work as a podcast production, a person, like a podcast producer, like a freelancer, right? And I was doing that for a while, trying to figure it out, trying to make a plan. And then I came across a video by Jasmine Star. I don't know if you know her.
I haven't heard of Jasmine Star yet.
Yeah. Okay. But she put out a video where she said someone else came to her and was asking her, what would you do? I have this issue, which is very similar to mine. What would you do? And she said, just DM 200 people. Just send 200 DMs. And if you don't get any clients from that, then we'll figure something out. But they'll send 200 DMs. I was like, okay, sure, I'll try that. And so I did this thing where, because I was a programmer, I put a little algorithm in Google search, and I was able to get a list of, hundreds of people on Instagram who had podcasts in their name or bio, podcast host, whatever. And I just DM every day. I DM'd hundreds of people, and it's like my pitch was like, hey, I love this thing that you're doing about your podcast. I could help you do this XYZ. I can help you make podcast now, produce a show, make it sound great. If you want, I could do an episode for you for free. And if you like it, we can talk about working long term. And so most people ghosted me. A lot of people said no, and some people said yes. And I remember one person who said yes. His name was Zach Klassen. He just wanted me to do some show notes for his show, and he paid me $27. And that $27 was like a huge relief for me, but it was also a huge inspiration because I felt at that point that if I could make $1, and in this case I made $27, I could make any amount of money. So this was definitely the path I was going to go down. And I did a couple more free episodes. Nothing worked out. And in one day, I was in Louis house, his Facebook group, and he was doing a monthly like hot seat, a monthly call in his membership group.
Okay.
So I joined that call. At the end of the call, he's like, "Does anybody want to come up and ask a question? Right? Does anybody want to come up and ask a question?" So I raised my hand. He got me in the hot seat, and I said, I want help to grow my Instagram. And he pulled up my Instagram account right there on the call in front of everybody. I was scrolling through it, and I was like, you're doing everything that I suggested you do. I'm surprised you're not seeing any results. Just keep doing it, right? And I was like disappointed because he didn't give me any groundbreaking advice. Yeah, I just wanted something, right? He didn't give me. He just said keep doing it, right? Which is very similar to how the Dan Henry Rose way. But anyways, just keep doing it. And I came off the call feeling a bit deflated. Told my wife, he didn't give me any great advice, but I did it anyways. I took action. Like I said, I had a bias for taking action, just going up there, doing something, being in the market. And a couple of days later, my DMs were being flooded. Like people were reaching out to me and they were saying, "Oh, I saw you on the hot seat, and I love your profile. I love you. I love your story. I want to talk to you about producing my podcast." And one of the first people that I worked with, I spoke to, he gave me an episode of his to produce. I did an amazing job, beyond harder than anything I've ever done in my life. And he's like, "Man, I love this. I love it so much. I want you to help me to launch my podcast. And how much do you want?" And I stayed up with my wife trying to figure out the proposal and I just couldn't figure it out because we just couldn't get the price right. And I said, "Okay, I'm not making any money right now. And I'm afraid that if I tell him how much money I actually want, he's just going to say no. And then I'd have lost a client forever."
I've been there. I feel that.
But I'm just going to put it on the line and ask for how much I want. And if he says no, then I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to ask him. And so I closed my eyes and I asked for $1,000 a month to do the podcast. And he got it. He read it. He's like, "I don't think we can do $1,000, but maybe we can do 900." I was like,
okay.
That's $900 more than I was making, so a month. So definitely, and that just started the snowball from there. Like that started the snowball. Launching his podcast, working with him for months. Other people who saw that hot seat also becoming clients, and that just led to just a whole lot for me after that, for sure.
Do you think if you stayed at your job, you would be in the position you are at right now? Like, do you think if you were to try to grow your podcast like you were doing on the side, would you be in the position you are now? Or do you think you might just be like I'm half in, half trying to build something?
I think that eventually the podcast would have taken off. Like it was taken off, right? But it wasn't take off where I could leave my job yet. But it would have taken off eventually. But I don't think it would have taken. It wouldn't have happened as soon. Like maybe in 2022 is where my actual entrepreneurship journey would have started if I'd stayed there, because like I was really attached to the job and the money that I was getting.
And you're getting promoted too, so you're probably having to do more work, more time in the job.
Exactly. So I'm grateful now, looking back, that I was laid off. Though it was a very traumatic set of circumstances, like this choice that I've made or this path that I'm on is much better than anything I would think I would have been doing at that time if I'd stayed there.
that I, I'm not gonna say I love that, but that was a powerful like journey that you went through. Like it was that described exactly what entrepreneurs go through. Like
Yeah,
the risk, the worry, the everything. Like it's not an easy ride as most people think it is. Like most people probably see you now and like, oh man, you got it made. Like and you're like, you have no idea what I went through to get to where I am right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Um,
It's a lot. You're starting from zero every single month.
so
So just
is
imagine that.
did I see that your wife's in on this with you as well? Like she's also a part in on this?
Yeah, we're both full time on the business, and have been
And
full time on the business since it started.
yeah, how has that contributed? I'm curious how that has contributed to the success because like most entrepreneurs, for instance, like me, I'm a solopreneur. You know what I mean? It's just me.
Hmm.
I do have a girlfriend, but she has her own stuff that she's doing. She's not like really interested in entrepreneurship. But
Yeah,
how has that kind of helped, like having your wife on board with you, and how does that affect like y'all's relationship dynamics since y'all are working together almost 24/7?
yeah. It has ups and downs. Definitely, the benefits outweigh the costs. Like
Okay.
the costs right now are, we're both full time on the business, so the business is responsible for paying us, which is responsible for paying our entire lifestyle. So the business
Yep.
has to be big enough to fund the lifestyle of me and my wife and our child, because there's no other source of income anywhere. Um, and also when we're both working on the business as co-founders, there's no off switch, right? We could be talking about going on vacation in the middle of trying to close a deal, in the middle of trying to deliver a product for a client. Like there's no off switch. Like there's no like, all right, I'm done for the day. Let's turn off and go to bed. Like it's always on your mind, always on both of our minds all the time. So that's one of the costs. The benefits are like you have someone to share the burdens with. Like you have someone to bounce ideas off. You have someone who can temper your impulsiveness when you choose to do things. Like she's very level-headed. She's very grounded. She's very analytical. Like she's a chartered accountant. She's an accountant, so she handles all the finances in the business, and is able to keep the business afloat. From a tax perspective as well, like she's very efficient when it comes to our taxes. So we keep all the money in the business, pay the least amount we can in taxes, because she's like on the ball of that. And having that person be a co-founder, someone you share your life with, um, because really a co-founder is someone you're very intimate with. You will be very intimate with. So
Yep.
to have that person be your wife is an even bigger bonus, because like we can share everything with each other.
Yeah, because most co-founders, like the people who they might live in different areas, their values might change over time, and it's like, how can you keep that relationship built to like stay locked in? Because as the business grows, people start to sometimes change. Not all the time, but
Exactly.
it happens, and you see it.
Exactly.
And you mentioned like an off switch. I don't have an off switch, which is my problem because I got to figure out that
Yeah.
off switch because I'm always talking about business. I'm like business, business, business. I'm like, how can I talk about something that's like relevant to what she wants to talk about? Because all I'm thinking about is business. Go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Business, business, business. Next
Get some groups, man. To surround yourself with other people who want to talk about business, and then just drain your all your business energy out on those people. So when you're rolling into the insignificant, all you have left is not
yeah.
business stuff.
So you're doing this podcast. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to? What's your goal with all this? Like, um, what are you aiming for?
Yeah. So my personal goal is to build this business up to a nice level. A couple $100,000 a month in revenue, couple $100,000 or more in profit, and then see what happens. Like I've always been interested in real estate. Always been interested in buying businesses, or being a part of growing businesses. That's what my podcast was about. It's about entrepreneurship and creating new entrepreneurs and helping entrepreneurs to grow. So that's always been my passion. So um, I do see that in my future. I want to use this business agency as a springboard into many other financially optimal ventures.
Okay. Um. Hmm. Any good books besides the one you mentioned earlier that you would say are must reads? Like must
Hmm.
reads. Like this would have an impact on a like someone who's trying to start a business or run a business. This book would uh, help change the trajectory or the way you actually operate your business better.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say you mentioned E Myth, which is a very good
You missed.
book. Alex Hormoz's $100 million Offers and
Okay.
$100 million Leads, I think, are good books as well. Russell Brunson's books, which is like .com secrets, expert secrets, traffic secrets, good books as well. Like those books are so ridiculous, the amount of value that you have in them. Like when I just started, those books didn't exist. Those five books I mentioned, all the Russell Brunson ones and the Alex Hormozy ones, and they're now so full of information of value. It's really good to you have to consume them. On Writing is good by Stephen King. Like he talks about writing and communication, and that really helps you when you're talking about writing copy, shaping your story and your narrative for public consumption. Um, I think there's a book called The Secret Power of Negotiation. I think that's the name of it. I'm not sure, but that's a good book to read. Um, Tim Ferriss's 4 Work Week already mentioned that is good. There's so many. There's so many books. Um, Zero
I'm
to One by
yeah,
Peter
I'm a
Thiel is
course
a good one as
person, so
well.
I like to watch a lot of courses. So I got to like sometimes like get out of the course mode and be like, okay, read a book, like sit down and read. Like that's my problem is I just like, don't want to sit and read. But like you
Yeah,
said,
and
you can learn a lot of value from a book.
books are underrated, man. Books
They're
are
underrated,
underrated. Like before
very.
courses were a thing, there were books, and the books have a lot of information in them. Books are underrated. Like I'm reading this book right now by Dan Kennedy called I think it's called How to Sell to the Affluent or something of that nature. It's a bit dated, but the principles in them is very good if you want to sell high ticket. It talks about how to approach that sale and what the motivations are for people at that financial stage. There's also the Billionaire Next Door is a very good book. It talks about basically financial management. It talks about how to not fall into the hype when you're just getting money. The real rich people, how they structure their families and how they structure their finances. Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of good books. A lot of good books.
Yeah, I'm getting into the book game because, like I said, every time I read a book, I know I get a lot of value from it, but I just never get to the next book. Like I always stop at that one book, and I was like, that's my
Yeah,
goal for this year is to read more books.
yeah. The Richest Man in Babylon is a good book as well. As a Man Thinketh, is a by James Allen is a good book. There's a book that I'm reading. I'm just reading nonstop now, over and over again. I think it's called How to Play the Game of Life and Win. I think that's the name of it, by Florence something from the 1920s. But it's a very good book about mindset and financial
I'm
principles.
definitely gonna watch this and go back over those books and write them down and pick a few from there. I did notice that I don't know if you noticed, but Alex Hormozy has his offer course on his website now, so you can go on his website and build your offer from his course, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Um, so you
both of
obviously
his
have.
books are now full courses on his website. So both $100 million offers and $100 million leads are on his website as full courses.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out because the offer one is the one that really interests me. Because to me, the offer is key, and a lot of people struggle with their offers. You know what I mean? It's like, how
Yeah.
can I get my offer correctly or a good offer? And now you can literally just go learn it.
Yeah.
Just,
That's
just keep
true. Yeah,
practicing
absolutely.
and go learn it. So
Yeah.
you have a lot going on. How do you manage your time? Because your time is valuable.
Hmm.
Uh, and like I said in the beginning, I appreciate you giving me an hour of your time and I do respect it. Um, how are you managing your time and like what to focus on and what not to focus on?
Yeah. A lot of things slip through the cracks, and so it's really just about prioritizing. Family for me has been one of the most important things. So it's my time is really split between um, business and family. Like
Okay.
business, family. There's gym time as well, which I do gym. I go to the gym every morning, not every morning, but 3 days a week in the morning after I drop my daughter to school. go to the gym for 3 days a week. But besides that, I'm working until say about 12, 1. Then my daughter comes home from school, and then there's a mixture of family time and work time there. And then in the night, when my daughter's gone to sleep, things back to work time. So everything else, and we talk about like social time with friends, that gets scheduled in between or not at all.
Or nothing at
And
all.
I'm in the phase now where I realize, most of my friends that I grew up with have migrated. They've gone. They've gone to Canada. They've gone to Europe. They've gone to America. And so I'm in that phase now where I'm in my late 30s, trying to build new friendships with new people. So I'm putting a lot more time slots on my calendar for random meetings and meetups and coffees, dinners. Yeah,
Do
because
you notice
I'm prioritizing building
yeah. Do you notice like
relationships.
as the more you do personal development and personal growth, like not on purpose and like not to be like mean or anything, but like some of your friendships just like are like they're just not aligned with your values anymore, and they're just like you spend less time with them, and
Yeah,
and then next thing you know you're because you want to spend more time with people who are on the same level because they do say the average of your 5 friends is the average of the person you're going to become, and I
yeah,
firmly believe this because I'm a firm witness of this. Not that I was a criminal or anything, but uh, they do have a really big effect on your life because if you're hanging around people who want to go out to the bars and who wants to do this and drink, like you're gonna do that stuff, and that's where your time's going. So that's the person you're gonna become. So
100%. Yeah,
so
yeah.
do you think that has podcasting just when you were podcasting has that helped like increase your network and the people you were around?
Yeah, for sure. It's like night and day. Like the people that I was able to meet through the podcast who were guests and who've now become friends are people who are also successful, who are now doing big things in the world.
Yep.
And we talk and we can hang out, and we can share what I'm doing, what they're doing, what we're learning, and yeah, it's having a podcast was really essential to make that happen, and I'm very grateful that I did it, and that these were the results of it. I mean, there are people who have podcasts and don't capitalize on the relationships. Like there are people who use a podcast as more like an industry line, like a factory line. Like, let's get people to come on as guests. All right, you're good, you're done, goodbye. Come on, all right, you're done, goodbye. Versus me, I'm trying to maintain a relationship. How can I offer value to you in the future? You can come back on at any point. Things of that
Yep.
nature. And I think people really value that because they value their time and they've shared their time with you. And so you respected their time, you're honoring them, and they value that.
So I used to be a YouTuber before, back in the day, before I would say, so my agency was in 2017, and then 2022, I was a YouTuber doing pranks and stuff. So switching over from podcasting, from pranking, it was all about views. So I'm like, okay, when I do this podcast, I need millions and millions of views. So I need to figure out, we need to talk about Andrew Tate. We need to talk about the world going to shit, the war that's going on right now. Like that's the stuff we need to talk about. But like you said, it's more about the relationship you're building. So
Yeah,
since then, I've shifted my mindset from okay, it's not what I want to talk about. It's not you. It's not about you. It's not about going viral. It's not about Andrew Tate. It's not about any of this nonsense to get mega
yeah,
views. Focus on building that relationship, and so that's what I've tried to do more and more, and get better and better each episode on the podcast.
yeah,
Um,
man.
so for the viewers out there who are wanting to start a podcast and things like that, how can you help?
Yeah, so we do launch as well, and we do production. So if you have a show, if you have an idea, we'll talk. We'll tell you about what it would take to launch that show out into the world. If you already have a podcast and you want someone who has the expertise to grow it, has the expertise to produce it, that's what we do as well. We grow your show, we produce your show week over week, month over month. You sound great, and you're getting the views to it through what we do to help grow your show.
And what's the common mistakes most people make when starting a podcast?
Common mistakes is they don't know who they're talking to, so they don't have a very clear idea of who they're talking to. They just want to jump in there and start talking, and they realize that they're talking to crickets, talking to nobody. So having an idea about who you're talking to is one, will be a huge one. Also, what is your unique insight? What's your unique angle? Like, are you, instead of just talking to whoever you want to you can talk to, what do you have access to? What do you have insider information on? If you're talking to entrepreneurs, what insider information as an entrepreneur do you have that will enrich a conversation with other entrepreneurs? That would also provide value to an audience more than just a surface level. This person's great. Like, how deep can you go based on what you have internally as your expertise? Those are two of the huge mistakes people make. Also, people think that it's going to be easy. Just going to jump in there, put out some episodes. It's going to go. It's just not. That's not what it's about. That's not how that works. Podcasts are notoriously hard to grow, and so you really have to be in it for the long haul. There are things that you can do to ramp up the growth, but if you don't have the mindset to be consistent for the long haul, it's just not going to work for you.
Yeah, because most people jump in and they're like, okay, if I put a couple episodes out, I'm gonna get a couple thousand views. I'm gonna be like Joe Rogan in like 3 weeks. 3 weeks, it would be like Joe Rogan, millions of views. And when they don't see that, they're like, fuck, like they might last.
Not even Joe Rogan was Joe Rogan in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real. My first podcast I launched was in 2021. It was right before I started YouTube. I made it 5 episodes, and then I quit. Because I was like, I'm not getting no views. I'm not getting no views on my podcast. So, yeah, so that's interesting. So, yeah, if you're looking to start a podcast, Paul's the guy definitely to hit up. Where can they find you?
Listenerstoclients.com. That is where you'd find me. Also, Instagram, Paul Stennett Live. I'm most active, most present in those 2 areas.
Perfect. And I will link that in the comments below. So you'll be able to shoot over to his Instagram and shoot him a direct message. Paul, appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, I value your time, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to jump on here and share your story. It was very interesting learning more about you. And I do hope we can have you on next year and kind of see the growth that you've done, and like I said, learn even more about you, because I know there's a lot more that we can dive into.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it.